Where are we on race relations in America?
Okay, tonight we're going to get into something we seem to be debating all the time on this show, and that is race in America.
Quote, conversation about race?
Nicolette, look at Nolan. Describe him for me in 3 words. Give me 3 words. Describe him.
He has a sweater, he has a tie, and he has a mic.
Okay. Gabriel, take a look at Nicolette. Describe her in 3 words.
She has a little gown, a black vest, and brown hair.
Okay. You did not refer to Nolan as being brown or black of skin. Why not?
Because it's like a bad thing to say.
What makes a black person black? Is it their skin? Is it their hair? Is it their manner of talking or the way the world sees them? And what makes them black in America? Race in America is a delicate and complex issue. For as long as I could remember, I've been exposed to the image of blackness that didn't encompass the true reality of the black experience. Rap videos, sitcoms, movies, black media in general. Blackness as I've been exposed to it has left little place for my black experience and identity to relate. In talking to my peers, I find that I'm not the only one disheartened by the representation of blackness in media. I find that my frustrations have been echoed time and time again. We neglect to find accurate depictions of ourselves in media, and this division between reality and reality portrayed has placed a pressure on the individual, either to assimilate or to rebel. But more often we internalize these images and end up being governed and controlled by their influence. It's a very special and overlooked privilege to be able to be okay at something. I don't want to feel this pressure to have to be the best, to be the first, to be the best because you are the first. That sort of weight that being the only black guy in the room, being the only person of color, that puts a spotlight that you don't want to be there. It contrasts a lot to the fact that most of the time, as a person of color, either you have a spotlight on yourself or you're practically invisible. It's either or, either you are the champion of your race or you're completely erased from whatever medium, whether it be like television, books, media in general, history. So why is it that the black identity is tied to violence, especially in the media that we consume and are subject to? Black identity in media straddles 2 narratives. The narrative of the fictionalized black identity, that which we see in rap videos, sitcoms, movies, reality TV, and the narrative of actual black lives. Black lives that are victimized and brutalized by a system that puts those acts on display. Coverage by news media and its portrayal of black lives is its own narrative of violence, which perpetrates stereotypes and continuously props up racist and false interpretations of black identity.
If you are a black person and live in the black community all your life and walk out on the street every day seeing white policemen surrounding you, when I was living in Los Angeles, for instance, I was constantly stopped. No, the police didn't know who I was, but I was a black woman and I had a natural, and they, I suppose, thought that I might be a, quote, militant.
We still live in a period of violence. That much hasn't changed. There exists an underlying fear within the black community of being the victim of unspoken violence, of violence that never seems to justify the outrage it causes. Black bodies are the targets of bullets and beatings. We are still very much surrounded, I live in New York. There's cops, not in every street corner, but they come close. And it's scary. I can't say that I feel safe around a police officer. I can't say or deny the fact that my heart quickens, when one rolls by, even though I've done nothing wrong. I know that existing as I am is suspicious within itself. Me being black is a dangerous act.
That people can look in their timeline and see kids dying and not react in a way that's human and that's real and that's genuine. You can't scroll past a picture of a young man in the middle of the street on his stomach with his brains blown out and react in any other way than the people are reacting right now. This should mean I want to live.
At the age of 16, I'm still confronted with these questions. How can we salvage true Black identity in the midst of false narratives? How can we possibly combat these images that are presented to us, subliminally or overtly, in our television shows, movies, and media? How can we grow to be more than Black people who are presented to be the butt of jokes, monsters to be feared, beings to be sexualized, or voices to be silenced? Is it possible for a future to exist where our bodies are not meant to be displayed, but our humanity meant to be fully recognized and represented? Does a future exist where our bodies will not be discarded? Will there be a time when people cast aside their discomfort and recognize racism? If we can somehow rewrite the diversity from the 90s and create a sense of diversity that isn't based on tokenism, where people of color can exist freely as people first. A future where races are not the sole defining attribute in our identities. Race will no longer be the prefix that defines an individual of color, but rather their humanity. In essence, when a Black person is allowed to be just a person first.